Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Sutala with Holistic Health and Healing, and also go by the Sonic Shaman. And I have with me again, because it was so much fun yesterday, I have Casey McBride, who is going to be doing some meditations and everything out of the center, but also just a wonderful brother on the path that I reconnected with just recently. And I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself as well.
Hey, I'm Casey McBride. I've been practicing various shamanic practices and really everything from hypnotherapy to advanced energy healing for over 10 years now. And just really starting to focus more on spreading the message about everything I've learned and experienced and helping others to discover spirit and the magic of shamanism for themselves. So very excited to be here doing this.
Right. And today we're going to try to stay on the topic of staying centered. So we're going to have a practice of it by staying centered on the topic and making sure we try to come back to it. And then a little bit later, we're going to have Casey's going to actually walk you through a little bit of a centering exercise. Really, it's an excuse because my kids are here and I have to go take cinnamon rolls out of the oven. And I thought, what a great opportunity to give you a little taste of meditation and centering from Casey.
Works out for everyone.
So I'll let you speak first to it. Like, what if, because everybody thinks that they're even the greatest meditators, right? Like everybody is all centered and they're walking their path. But even Christ wrecked the tabernacle once because he lost his cool. So the question is, like, when we're amidst the chaos of the world and things that are really knocking us off kilter, what tools do you use from a shamanic perspective or any perspective to help bring yourself back to center?
So really, awareness and building awareness of your own thoughts and your own internal environment is huge because it's when we are not aware of the way that our mind wants to pull us along that we're easily pulled into any direction it wants to take us. So, for example, things are always going to arise. And even, like you said, even the most awakened being on the planet, Christ, the Buddha, they have moments where they become distracted, emotional, just like everyone else. But the difference between like a really enlightened, master, whatever you want to call it, and someone who's just starting out is they have more practice returning to that peaceful space. So everyone becomes distracted, and it's just a matter of catching yourself and becoming aware of that. And we do that through meditation and mindfulness exercises. But I think a key point for me in my practice was when I realized that I needed to break this sort of mental barrier that a lot of people have of this is my practice when I meditate or do my work, and then the rest of my life, and making my whole life the practice. That's really, I think, the biggest hurdle that a lot of people have to get over, because it's one thing to be sitting there and meditating when everything's perfectly quiet and there's no distractions. It's easy to sink into a deeply peaceful state at that time, but when we're out in the world and there's chaos around us, always practicing, always being aware of our thoughts and emotions, always sort of meditating in a way, making that a constant practice is really key to not being sucked along in whatever direction the world wants to take you.
Right. And for me, I used to work in banking and I had a phone job where I'd heard the worst sob stories across the board. And I found myself getting drawn into their stories and getting knocked off the center. And what worked for me is when I finally started taking some classes and I found Fellowships of the Spirit, I learned a great way to do a practice meditation. And they said that every time whatever you want to choose as an anchor, whenever you're starting to do the practice that you are going to use to train yourself to be centered and to enter theta state, pick something to anchor you. And then when you are in one of those situations where it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? You can trigger that anchor. And then that helps you bring back to that meditative state. And for me, I used the breath because I figured no matter what, I always got my breath. 3 deep breaths, and I would start my meditation practice. Some people use a little chime or a little bell, whatever you'd like, or an NLP use anchoring where you pick a spot on the finger and you literally set an anchor point that I know that when I do this, I'm entering meditation. And it's a simple, similar to the idea with, I think it was B.F. Skinner, no, Pavlov, Pavlov's dog with the tuning fork. They would bring a tuning fork, then feed the dog, and eventually the dog associated the tuning fork with getting fed, even if he didn't get fed. And that's what an anchor does. It helps you trigger back to a state.
Absolutely. So anchoring is a fascinating topic. And when studying hypnotherapy, which is one of the first things I really got into that got me to start to question a lot of things, I learned a lot about that and what we would do in order to more easily enter the trance state. Because in the beginning, like you're talking about, that theta brainwave state where we're really relaxed but focused, where we're able to feel peace and also get spiritual work done. At first, it takes a lot of time and effort to kind of bring yourself down from our everyday mind chatter into that sort of relaxed state. So what we would do in order to help speed that process up is one of the first things is, as you're entering those deep meditative states, the thing I learned was similar to what you said. You would give yourself the suggestion that every time I touch my pointer finger and my thumb together, I easily and effortlessly, instantly re-enter this state and go even more relaxed. And then, at first you're sitting there thinking, well, is this really going to work? And then, you try it later, touch your fingers together, and you are just instantly able to go back there. But an anchor can be anything, like you said. And eventually, I think when you really start to develop a mindfulness practice that you're constantly implementing, eventually everything becomes an anchor. Everything starts to remind you. At first, like I noticed when I would comb my beard, I noticed I would always get distracted for whatever reason, and my mind would go all over the place. So then I started to think, okay, I noticed that I become distracted when I'm combing my beard. So now I'm going to become really, really present and aware to keep myself in the moment when I'm combing my beard. And now it's the opposite. So if I could be distracted doing whatever, and then in the morning routine, when I go to comb my beard, I'm like instantly very present without thinking about it.
Very interesting. And regardless of the anchor, it's really about getting yourself out of the space of being on autopilot mode and really being present for your everyday experience, whatever tools you need to use. I don't have it. I was looking to see if I had the book around me. I have my favorite author. One of my favorite authors is Neil Donald Walsh, and there's this one pager about meditation that is absolutely fantastic. Maybe when you're doing your centered exercise, I will find the copy of the book I have at home, and I'll read that as like kind of our closing thing today.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. But remaining centered is, I think a lot of people have heard that term and, stay centered, stay focused. But I don't think a lot of people have practical exercises for bringing themselves into a centered space. So, yeah, I think it'll be a good thing to give everyone a little taste of something practical they can do with just a few minutes of time. And people are typically amazed at what just 3 to 5 minutes of sitting down, grounding, centering, the shift that can have. I mean, it can take people from a place of really high anxiety and stress down to, I feel great. I'm super relaxed right now. And it just took a few minutes. Didn't have to take a pill. Didn't have to do anything extravagant. Just a few minutes of going through a focus exercise. It's amazing what it does for people.
And just the exercise itself, there's another principle in NLP that we call interrupts. So when you're in your normal patterning, if you do something that takes the brain completely outside of its normal process and you do something different, it actually helps you to move in and establish better practices and things like that. So like smokers, for example, we have like this little inhaler, black peppers, essential oil, which is good for breaking addictions and things, possibly. I'm not saying it's a medical thing. But one of the things that people are doing with that is every time they have a craving, it's not just that they're not smoking, they're doing something different than what they normally do. So they're interrupting the normal patterning and establishing a new behavior. So that's another great little tool. They say sometimes in therapy, you act opposite. If you're depressed, you act opposite. You're breaking the normal cycle of depression or whatever it is that you're working on.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about anything that takes us out of the normal, our normal way of behaving. It causes, just even for a moment, a bit of a paradigm shift. There's a lot of really cool things I've come across in the recent years, but you do a lot with sound healing, so I'm sure you're familiar with these kind of concepts. But I've learned tube and throat singing, like how we sing with the larynx. If you ever heard, it's that really like deep kind of intense singing that doesn't sound like a sound that the human voice is supposed to be able to make. And sitting there and doing that, you're doing something that most people have never even been taught that the human body is capable of doing. And that really shifts your awareness. And same thing with like toning. I love doing that, where you get a group of people around and you literally just say vowel sounds, kind of like how when we chant, exactly like how when we chant Pachamama and Inti and all that for the opening ceremonies. again, that's not something people sit around and do all the time normally. Well, shamans might, but again, it brings you out of your normal comfortable way of thinking, functioning, acting, and it really sets you up to create and experience new ways of thinking, new ways of being. So there's something to be said about that.
And toning is a great thing too. Like if you do feel off center, if you look online, you can find that each chakra has like a certain symbol. So it's like Ra, and I don't remember them all because I haven't studied the chakras as much as I have other systems. But if you feel out of balance, you could actually do toning to help center yourself. So you're doing the interrupt, you're doing something to establish an anchor to go to centering, and you're actually getting we call it in sound healing sympathetic resonance. So if your root chakra is out of balance and you're toning a frequency that a healthy chakra would make, it helps the chakra shift into resonance. And that's what we're doing in the Pachamama. Pachamama. It's actually doing a toning of the energy centers in the South American tradition we call nawis, which are like these lenses of energy that open and close. And it's how you bring energy in or express it out of your system, where chakras are energy distribution nodes, if you will, that move energy throughout the system. But each one of the ones that we chant are all for a different energy center. And when you hear when you go up, it gets higher and higher, it's all balancing the different energy centers.
Yeah, it's so cool how physical sound has such an effect on not just our energy, the energy of our bodies, but we can measure it on like a physical level. I don't know if you're probably familiar with Dr. Emoto's experiments on water.
Yes, absolutely.
That is such a fascinating thing to me. For those of you, Hank might be able to give a little more in depth than I can, but for those of you who aren't familiar, Dr. Emoto, I believe, is a Japanese physicist who studied the molecular structure of water, and he had a device that would magnetically restructure water so that essentially it was like at this, I don't know, like a neutral structure, I guess you could say. And then he would apply all kinds of stimulus like sound and thoughts. And he would play like beautiful music and symphonies just to this water, and then freeze it and look at the crystals under a microscope. And when he would play beautiful music, they would freeze in these complex, beautiful snowflake looking structures. And then he would take that same restructured water and then instead of beautiful music, he'd play like death metal or something like really like dissonant, and it would freeze in these just really fractured looking kind of chaotic patterns. And he would even take that further and not just work with sound, but just thoughts, just by looking and thinking loving, peaceful thoughts into the water. Same thing. You get these beautiful crystals, and then thinking hateful thoughts that the water would create this shattered, fractured, dissonant looking pattern.
Right. And I think you pretty much summed him up pretty well. Some of his work is showcased in a very digestible format in a book called What the Bleep Do We Know? And it gives a couple examples. So if you want to have a good resource, there's a movie and a book you can kind of check out. But something else you can look at is if you take a cymatic plate, so it's like a big plate that it's flat, and you put either salt or sand on it, and you run a frequency through it, so it's vibrating at a certain hertz frequency, so 440 cycles per second, it just kind of makes an incoherent blob. And if you do 432 cycles per second, it creates a 16-pointed geometric shape that looks like a sun. And so you can actually see how very specific frequencies react very differently and create different patterns in like the little molecules of our bodies and things of that nature.
I find all of that so incredibly fascinating. And I know a number of people who, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this. I've had experience with this in the past, but I think sound can be a large stress and anxiety trigger for a lot of people. You know, the sounds of the city, the sounds of, whatever it might be, or the neighbors next door or whatever can be a big anxiety trigger. So, I think the fact that we're able to harness sound for a positive effect, and we know so much about how these frequencies affect the different energy centers is really amazing. To me, I just see the parallel. Sound can be just as healing as it can damaging to the body. So I think that's really.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they even use sound technology in military operations. There's sonic hurt rays, quite literally, that will just basically stop a crowd and make them run the other way, stuff like that. So it sound literally can do anything. And in shamanism, we say that, it's the raw, undomesticated power of the universe. It just wants to be used. It's our responsibility to use it for things that in our life will create healing and possibility. But Casey, why don't we give them a taste? We can take a moment, and I will turn the camera over to you. And why don't you walk everybody through a little centering exercise and give them, a tool that they might be able to take away with them today.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to be doing, this is an old shamanic exercise that I've came across a long time ago for grounding, but I found that I can adapt it to work very well for grounding and then centering. The two, I think, really go hand in hand. So what I'll have everyone who's here following along do is find yourself in a comfortable position, seated or lying down, or even standing up, whatever you're comfortable with. But find yourself in a position where you can be comfortable for about 5 minutes. And go ahead and close your eyes as long as you're in a safe place to do that. Take a few deep breaths and allow your attention to sink down away from the mind and into the body. As you breathe, allow more and more of your awareness to sink down into the body, eventually settling into your feet. Place all of your awareness in your feet. And this may be something that you've not really taken the time to do all that much before. How many people just sit there and really pay attention to their feet? But take a moment to do this now. Become curiously and intimately aware of all of the sensations in your feet. Are there any sensations in your feet you weren't aware of just a moment ago? Do they feel warm or cool? Are there any areas that are tense? Any areas that feel particularly light and comfortable? Just take note of all of the sensations in your feet. And imagine, if you're not familiar with working with energy, just imagine what it would feel and look like if you could perceive the energy of the earth. What does the energy of the earth feel like below you? No matter where you are on this planet, the earth is underneath you somewhere, even if it's floors and floors below. This vast, powerful energy of the earth is sitting there. So become intimately and curiously aware of the energy of the earth now. Underneath your feet, feel the energy of the earth below the feet. And use your awareness to begin to pull the energy of the earth. And again, you can imagine the energy looking or feeling like whatever it is that feels correct for you. So if you imagine the energy of the earth looking as like a light, a milky light moving up the body, that's perfect. Or it can look like soda pop bubbles or whatever it is that's most comfortable for you. Just really imagine and bring in as much imagined sense as you can. But imagine that as you breathe, the energy from the earth is traveling up the back side of your body. So through the heels, up the back of the calves, moving the back of the thighs, through the back of the hips, into the low back, up through your mid-back, upper back, and shoulders, through the neck, up around the back of the head, all the way to the top. Continue breathing as the energy flows now around down the front of the body, through the face, the jaw, past the neck, down through the shoulders and arms, down through your chest, your abdomen, past the whole torso and then into the hips, through your thighs, through the fronts of your shins and the feet, forming a complete circuit, the energy now traveling back into the earth. And now we're going to do a little bit more of a sped up version of that same process that we just went through. But this time, In one smooth, flowing motion with your imagination, breathe and pull energy from the earth up the back side of the body to the top of the head on the inhale. From the earth all the way to the top of the head on the inhale. On the exhale, breathe the energy down the front of the body back into the earth. And we're going to do this 3 times. So I'll guide us through it. Breathing in, pull the energy up the back side of the body to the top of the head. On the exhale, feel it flow down the front of the body and back into the earth. Breathing in, pulling energy up the back side of the body to the top of the head. Breathing out, feeling it flow down the front of the body and back into the earth. One more breath, really bring it in as you pull it up the back of the body all the way to the top of the head. Exhale, feel it flow down the front of the body and back into the earth. Allow your attention and your awareness to sink into the body, into the energy that you're feeling flowing through the body, and breathe naturally now. We're going to do another set of 3 breaths. And this time, instead of breathing the energy up the back of the body and then down the front, we're going to breathe the energy from the earth up the right side of our body to the top of the head. So through the right foot, up the right leg, etc., all the way to the top of the head. On the exhale, breathing the energy down the left side of the body back into the earth, making a circuit. So we're going to do this for 3 breaths, starting on your next breath. Breathe in, pull the energy up the right half of your body all the way to the top of the head. Exhale, feel it flow down the left side of the body and back into the earth. Breathe in, feel that energy flow up the right side of the body to the top. Exhale, feel it flow down the left, back into the earth. Really feel the energy as it flows in and up the right side of the body all the way to the top of the head. Feel it flow down the left, back into the earth. Allow your awareness to sink back into your body, allowing your breath to return to a natural rhythm. And now place all of your attention in your navel. Bring all of your awareness into your navel, knowing that this is the energetic center of the body. Bring all of your attention there to your largest energy center. Breathe and feel as though your breath is connected with your navel. Imagine that instead of breathing through your nose or your mouth into your lungs, you're breathing through the navel. Each breath brings energy into the navel, and every exhale, the navel relaxes. Breathing through the navel. And allow your attention to begin to sink in to the breath. And more important than the in-breath and the out-breath is the space between the breaths. And see if you can find that space. What does it feel like? No need to answer on a conceptual level. Just feel it for yourself. Become curiously aware of that space between the breaths, the space in your navel. Place all of your attention there. And see if just for a moment you can become aware of what it is that's doing all of this watching. We've been moving the attention to various parts of the body, to moving the energy, to focusing on the breath. What is it that's been paying attention? Can you feel just awareness itself? Become aware of that. What is it that pays attention to all of these things? Can you place your awareness back on itself? Become aware of the awareness. Just imagine what that would be like if you can't go there yourself. And just allow yourself now to feel that silence, that space. Sink into that deep, vast, spacious, void-like silence. And know that you can enter this space whenever you want. It can be as simple as taking a breath. Know that with one simple breath in and out, and then focusing on that space in between the breaths, you can sink right back into this peaceful, relaxed state. You can go even deeper than this, even more relaxed. Remaining focused, centered, feeling more calm, more grounded. Take a deep breath, feeling yourself becoming a little more energized. Another deep breath, feeling yourself becoming reoriented to the room around you. And one more, slowly opening your eyes, remaining peaceful, calm, and grounded as you proceed to go on with your daily experience, feeling more comfortable, more calm, more relaxed, more whole. I see Hank has rejoined us.
Yes. I was planning my rejoining, and I think I figured out for future how to do things a little differently. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that, especially since I asked you to do it off the cuff.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Yeah, I could do that stuff all day.
Great. And I did find the passage, before I read that, I wanted to offer a prayer of intention from Rishi's Metaphysical Institute, of which I studied at for some number of years. This is their credo, and they begin with this every time before entering meditation and starting the class. But it is my desire to sit calmly upon the throne in the temple of my own body, between the two great pillars of positive and negative vibrations, balancing them to the point where I can radiate through my temple of light to all whom I contact the wonderful peace, poise, power, wisdom, love, and harmony of God. It's a wonderful thing to start your day, or meditation practice, whatever you're doing. That prayer in and of itself is a great way to stay centered.
Absolutely.
And I know for those of you just joining us or watching this on the replay, Casey's going to be doing 3 meditations a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. We don't have the registration links up yet, but I'll put it in the comments as soon as we do. And Casey will be joining me often, because this is so much fun doing this with someone else, not just talking at a camera by myself.
Absolutely. And we were talking, we both kind of have wanted to interact with the online community more, and I think this will be a great way to have fun doing that. And I think so many people could benefit from just taking a few moments to, like you said, step outside of that normal way of thinking, or if you are used to thinking in this way, it's a great way to remember that, yes, we are on the right path and to keep going in this direction. So it's a wonderful thing.
And it's very important, even if you have studied a lot of things and you think you know it all, I would invite everybody to consider to be aware of what they don't know, and have an awareness that you don't know what you don't know. And you never know when the little nugget that might be there that's like changing everything that you thought you knew to something else, so that creates greater possibilities for you. So
I think those of us who have been practicing for a little longer eventually come to the realization that the more we start to learn and experience, the more we realize we really don't know a whole lot. We still have a lot to learn.
No, I don't think I shared this with you. During my silent weekend meditation retreat, there was like a 4-weekend series I did called The 100th Monkey. And one of the 3 weekends was a silent weekend. And on the last weekend, I see all my guides in front of me, and they all form into a little orb. And I see like a projection coming from me that's like going towards the ball of light. And then I hear, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The more you realize you don't know, the more you realize it doesn't matter what you know, what you don't know. It's what you're being. and then I heard, you're the only one in the room.
Yeah, I've heard you say that so many times, and I love that. I think the first time years ago when you said that, I knew what you meant, but I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, I shared that with you then?
You did. You're
Wow.
the only one in the room thing. Yeah. And I remember, having experienced, meditation and the experience of pure isness and oneness. I was like, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. But does this guy really think that that he's the only one here in this. Like, I just remember having kind of a
Well, that's the little thing that when it's a great truth, the greatest truths are paradoxes because
right.
they're in opposition from the oneality to the duality. So birds of a feather flock together is a oneality truth, but opposites attract is a duality truth. And so, but that's a whole nother video we could do on that.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, it's, you're the only one in the room and so am I.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize I had mentioned that. That's the one thing we talked about then. That's great. We talked about a lot of things. Any final thing before I read this passage from Neale Donald Walsch's work on meditation?
Yeah, feel free to come in and join the meditation, have fun, play. It's something we all need to do for our health and our growth. Like I said, sitting and having our own personal practice and meditating, doing our spiritual work on a day-to-day basis, that's really important, and that's the foundation. But I think getting together and practicing in a group setting, virtual, in person, it really helps us to sort of recharge our battery, because we can become a little distracted by life, and we can sort of fall off the path a little bit in terms of not being as focused as we want. But when we get together and we practice, we re-energize ourselves, we become excited about our practice again, and then our daily practice as we go throughout our everyday life, I think is so much more energized. So I think it's so important to get together. So please join us and have some fun.
Yep. And in closing, this is the book. This is Neale Donald Walsch, Conversations with God, and I'm just going to read the one page on meditation as our closing here. And we're doing a Conversations with God discussion group virtually tonight at the center. Well, not at the center. It will be online, but there's information on our page for that. If you want to go check it out, you can join us for that later. And so Neale asks God, so daily meditation is a good idea? And God replies, a good idea, yes. Yet know what I have just said here. The song of the soul may be sung many ways. The sweet sound of silence may be heard many times. Some hear the silence in prayer. Some sing the song in their work. Some seek the secrets in quiet contemplation, others in less contemplative surroundings. When mastery is reached, or even intermittently experienced, the noises of the world can be muffled, the distractions quieted, even in the midst of them. All of life becomes a meditation. All of life is a meditation in which you are contemplating the divine. This is called true wakefulness or mindfulness. Experienced in this way, everything in life is blessed. There is struggle and pain and worry no more. There is only experience which you may choose to label in any way you wish. You may choose to label it all as perfection. So use your life as a meditation and all the events in it. Walk in wakefulness, not as one asleep. Move with mindfulness, not mindlessly, and do not tarry in doubt and fear, neither in guilt nor self-recrimination, yet reside in the permanent splendor and the assurance that you are grandly loved. You are always one with me. You are forever welcome, welcome home. For your home is in my heart, and mine in yours, and I invite you to see in life what you will surely see in death. Then you will know there is no death, and what you called life and death are both part of the same unending experience. We are all that is, all that was, and all that ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And
I think I was going to say, I think that was a perfect, we had touched on so much of that, and I think that was such a beautiful way to wrap all of that up. It was kind of encapsulated all the things we've been talking about.
I love his work. It's amazing stuff. So please join us tonight we do it on the fourth Thursday of every month, and we always stream it, but today we're streaming it only. And Casey, I know you're going to be traveling, but if you're free, hop on that as well. We're going to have a Zoom up as well as a YouTube live. So we'll be Zooming, and I'll send you the link if you're interested.
Sounds good. Absolutely.
Cool. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you again real soon.
Thank you so much, everyone.